I'm Renee. I'm a retired educator turned wine bar conversationalist. Welcome back to Conversations Over Wine, where wisdom is poured and stories are shared. Each week, I want us to slow down, pour a glass, and talk about life's lessons, aging with intention, and what really matters as we are growing older. I'm so glad you're here. Pour yourself a glass of wine and let's begin. Let's face it, friends. Putting on a few or more extra pounds sure seems to get easier as we age. There are several reasons for that, as we all know, and we can explore that topic more another time. But today I'd like to talk less about the why it happens and a little more about what I personally did when it happened to me. I'd like to share what I did when those few extra pounds snuck up on me the last couple of years. I'm no expert or licensed dietitian, but I am someone who has done my share of research on the topic to help get myself back to where I was before. I'm talking about the comfortable weight and size that feels best to me. I bet we all have a happy place in that regards. I think sometimes, we get busy with our lives when we're raising kids or working a lot or all the other things that can happen. And next thing we know, we're in the dressing room and we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see. That happens. Not to everybody, but to a lot of people. And there always seems to be, when I read other stories, some pivotal moment that happened where someone just decided, this is not working for me. I just don't like the way I look. I'm not comfortable in it. I don't like the way my clothes fit. All of those things. Well, and that's kind of what happened to me. I've talked in several of the episodes about, this past year, 2025, and all the change I went through, selling my house, moving to an apartment, retiring from education, all of that. Well, that all kinds of leads to what I'm talking about today. I woke up one day, had a normal day. I was actually trying on some clothes at a local store and did not like what I saw. I had made several excuses and just kind of ignored it over the last 2 years, where a couple of pounds were just adding up. And I just decided, you know what? It's time to make a change. I wasn't obese or really even considered overweight, but I had gained enough weight that I didn't like it. I didn't like the way my clothes were fitting. I didn't like the way I felt. And when that happens, well, we know when we're in there in our closet and we're trying on clothes and we don't like the way anything looks. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. So you either buy new clothes or buy a new outfit or just give up and not go or whatever it may be. Well, that's kind of where I was. I didn't like the way I looked. I knew I needed to make some change. And with my life slowing down after retiring and simplifying my living arrangement, I was able to become a lot more active like I used to. I used to be a big runner, like pretty avid runner. I ran races and even did a full marathon, and I ran a lot. Well, about 7 or 8 years ago, I gave up running because I just didn't like what I felt like the damage it was doing to my body. So I've just kind of done different things since then, rowing, weightlifting, walking, Pilates, just different things here and there. But over the last 1.5 to 2 years, before I moved here into my apartment, I was working a lot. And what suffered was my exercise routine. I was just kind of getting in walks with the dogs. Here and there, I'd get in an online Pilates class or, just a little bit here and there, which wasn't enough. And so weight began to pile on. I was grabbing food when I shouldn't. I've been a pretty good healthy eater throughout my life, but you can gain weight eating healthy food. If you eat too much, it's just going to happen. So here's what's gone on over the last 6 months for me in this regards. I've lost around 20 pounds. How did I do that? Well, not the shot or anything like that. Not that that doesn't work for some people, and not that maybe that's their best option, but that was not something for me. And I decided to tackle it through diet and exercise. So I began to use the MyFitnessPal. That's one way I started losing weight. I began to track my food. I've done that in the past before, and it's just very telling. Like you can tell yourself, well, I barely ate today. Yeah, but then if you put it into MyFitnessPal and you take a look at it, or whatever it may be, any kind of food journal, you might really be surprised. And it puts it right there in your face. Like if you track every single thing you put in your mouth throughout the day, it's really, really eye-opening. So that's one of the things I did, is I began to track my food. I used an online calculator to calculate my daily calories goal in order to reach my desired weight. So I needed to know where I wanted to go, what my desired weight was, and how many daily calories I would be allowed in order to reach that goal. So I put that into MyFitnessPal. And so then I knew, okay, this is how many calories I can consume every day from whatever sources, right? So I used a tracker for me, MyFitnessPal. It's free, so it was easy for me. I figured out how many calories I could, consume each day if I wanted to reach that desired weight. And then the next thing I did was I bought a food scale. So that way, when I was putting in my protein or whatever it may be, I could weigh it and actually know instead of just eyeballing it. So I began to use a food scale, and I also began to use, measuring cups and measuring spoons when I was adding different things to my food. I prioritized protein. I've listened to lots of podcasts, read lots of articles about how important protein is at this age. I mean, that is where we get our muscles. Okay, we have to have protein in them. And if you don't have enough protein going into your body, then your body's going to use up those muscles, and you're not going to have the muscles that you need to function properly. And the other thing about that is, if you are losing weight and you're not getting enough protein, then you're going to be losing muscle as you're losing weight. Something else I learned in my journey. Another thing that kind of played in with all of this is I did not have any off-limit foods. I just had off-limit quantities. So I didn't, say, well, you don't get to have carbs, or you don't get to have a hamburger every once in a while, or, whatever it may be for you. I allowed myself to eat the things that I wanted, but just not all that I wanted. I still made sure that I was keeping my calories within the range that I needed in order to lose the weight. So I would just plug in whatever I had, whether that day I did have a hamburger, it went in there, it counted. So that just means, maybe I had to cut back in another area. So for me, like I said before, I'm a pretty healthy eater. So, I do love vegetables and I do love healthy food. So, that part was fairly easy for me, but I did not try to go on some particular kind of diet. I wasn't doing carnivore or, any keto or anything like that. I just continued to eat the foods that are healthy. And then if I wanted something, maybe that was a little off path there, maybe not quite as healthy, then I didn't, I didn't limit that. I didn't say, no, you don't get to have that. I just didn't eat all of it, right? So I don't know. It's kind of like that saying that says, you can eat what you want, just not all you want. So that was something else I adhered to while I was on this journey. Next thing is I did eat 3 meals a day. So I still do that. Like, I'm in maintenance now. And so I don't really skip meals unless, every once in a while I may have to when I'm working. So there is, occasionally a day where I only do 2 meals. But for the most part, I eat 3 meals a day. I'm not a huge snacker, but sometimes I'll have a snack. But those would get tracked as well. So that's all part of, trying to hit that calorie deficit for the day. So those add in. Another thing is I did not cut out alcohol. But on the days I drank, those calories counted and they were tracked. So I always put, if I had a glass of wine or 2, or a mixed drink or something out with friends, it went in there. It went into my log and it counted. So for some people, they need to cut out alcohol in order to reach their goal, or they feel that they need to, and that's okay. I didn't do that. So everybody do kind of what works for you. One of the biggest things I did is I added in lots of movement. And I can kind of do that now because I do have more time on my hands. I work part-time 3 days a week at the wine bar, but I do always have my mornings. So I added in lots of movement. And now I live on the Trinity River, which is one of the reasons I chose the apartment I did, is so that I had access to the trails, because I love to be outside and I love to move. So now I walk around 4 miles every morning, and I move a lot during the day as well, the rest of the time. I'm not a very sedentary person, and fortunately my part-time job is not a sedentary job. Even when I'm at work, I'm moving. I don't have a job where I have to sit in front of a computer all the time. So I'm lucky in that regards. And I also got, a walking pad, so that if I were kind of behind on my steps for the day, or, the weather, wasn't very conducive to walking on the trails, I could, get on my walking pad and get those steps in. So that was a big part of it. It's just getting the movement in. Also, I lift weights 3 to 4 days a week. I don't do it for an hour or 2. I go into the gym here at my apartment about 3 to 4 days a week, and I lift for 20 to 30 minutes. I've read a lot about how important that is for us women as we are aging, is to make sure we're doing resistance training. So I used to lift years ago, and I'd kind of given it up the last few years. And so I've put that back in as well, which honestly, I believe is really important if you are losing weight as well, because like I said about the protein, like if you're losing weight, you can very easily lose muscle at our age. So you have to put in that protein, hit those protein goals, and you have to be lifting weights. And you have to think about it as we're getting older, what we're going to be using our muscles for. When we get older, we're going to be getting up, things that we take for granted now. Those things are going to take, muscle strength. And if we lose all that, then we're going to end up being the people that need help getting out of bed and help getting out of a chair. And when we're injured, we're not going to have, the muscles that we need to help our bodies recuperate. So I'm a firm believer in weight training. Along with all of these other things, I have prioritized eating a lot at home. I've never really been a big fast food person, but I have prioritized eating at home. I do go out to eat with my friends, and sometimes I go out to eat by myself, but that's not a daily thing, maybe a couple of times a week. And I certainly enjoy that, but the rest of the time I cook at home. When I grocery shop, I tend to shop the perimeter of the grocery store because that's where I can find the fruits that I enjoy, the vegetables and the meats. And, there's their occasional items that I shop for, in the interior sections, but my real focus is shopping on the perimeter. That's where I think we can get, the best bang for our buck when it comes to healthiest foods. And I keep my refrigerator and pantry stocked with the foods I know that make my body feel the best. And that's the thing about this. Like we all have a weight where we feel like we look good, a size that makes us comfortable and makes us, feel really good when we put on our clothes and proud of that. And I think it's the same with food. We have to learn to listen to our body and know which foods make us feel the best and which of those do not. And oftentimes that has to do with how healthy the food is. So I think about that a lot. I'm pretty conscious of that. So when I'm buying foods or eating out, I try to choose those foods that I know are going to make me feel good and that later I'm not going to be like, I feel gross. So I try to be cognizant of that. That's not 100% rule, right? We all sometimes are going to have that chips and queso that we know is going to make us feel yuck later, but that's okay as long as that's not the norm, because otherwise that just doesn't feel good to me. The most important aspect of all to me with the nutrition and the exercise and all of that, to me, the main point is sustainability. Because we have to develop a lifestyle of, eating right and exercise that we can sustain. Something that is more of a lifestyle instead of like a fad diet or an extreme dieting or anything like that is just not sustainable. We may lose, because I've done a few of those things, and I dropped a few pounds, or it worked for a while, I guess I should say. But sustainability to me is what's most important. That's what works for me. I want it to be my lifestyle. I don't want to have to, track all my food for the rest of my life. But now I don't. I lost the weight that I wanted to lose. And now I can kind of eyeball my chicken and know about how many ounces I'm looking at. I, check my weight periodically throughout the week on the scale. And, I've just, because I went through all of that and I tracked food and weighed it and have developed, redeveloped my workout routine, and I keep good foods in my home, then I don't have to be so stringent about it. Now I can kind of eyeball things and know, okay, this is enough food, or these are the foods that make me feel the best. And the movement part is also extremely important to me. And to me, that is sustainable. Walking every morning is sustainable for me. Lifting weights for 20 to 30 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week is sustainable for me. So for me, that is what worked. Tracking my food, figuring out my desired weight and how many calories that I could have each day, weighing my food, prioritizing protein, not really having any off-limit foods, just off-limit quantities. I moved a lot and continue to move a lot. Whatever form of exercise, makes you happy, feels good to you. I love the walking outside every morning simply because I love to be outdoors, one, and I can get that sunshine that I know that we need. So that's what works for me. The weightlifting, 3 to 4 days a week, prioritizing eating at home, shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, keeping my refrigerator and pantry stocked with those items, and making sure that whatever changes that I've made are sustainable for me. So that has been my journey. I've kind of reached my goal and changed it a couple of times because I continued to lose weight and liked the way that I felt and looked. But now I'm where I want to be. So that's kind of been over the last 6 months. I feel really good. I feel good when I put on my clothes. I like the way I look. And so I've kind of gotten my healthiest body back, and I feel good about that. So I hope through this discussion that maybe in some way or some form, some of this may resonate with you, and maybe it gives you something to think about if you ever get in that position where you'd like to, lose a few pounds or kind of start moving more or whatever that, may be for you. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys that have been joining me and have encouraged me on this new journey, this new podcast. It's so exciting and fun, which is what I wanted it to be. And I want to thank you as we've sipped today, savored, and reflected on this beautiful life that we've been given. Today we kind of focused on, how to also make it the healthiest life. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to follow me, subscribe, like the videos, make comments, give me some feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to hear on my show. I've also put these on a YouTube channel. So if you like to, go on YouTube, I'm now on there under Conversations Over Wine. So if you'd like to follow me there, that would be wonderful. But thank you. And until next time, friends, cheers.